That's it! An album review! That's what I've needed all this time! How have I not thought about this before? Hey review family, keep it high, keep it tight. My name is Jay Morris, the review guy, and I'm back again to bring you another video. And in this one, I'm going to be doing an album review for the new Hate Eternal album, Upon Desolate Sands. Hate Eternal, St. Petersburg, Florida, formed in 1997, death metal band, bordering on the brutal death metal side. Currently signed to Season of Mist. This is their 7th album. Let's get right into it. This album's amazing. Straight up, this album is one of the best death metal albums that I have heard all year, and that's saying something, because I have heard quite a bit of really good death metal albums. Probably one of my other favorites this year was Augury's album that came out a long time ago. It was one of the first albums that I reviewed this year, called like The Elusive Golden Age. That one was a really good one, but this Hate Eternal album really is amazing. 9 tracks, 39 minutes in length. It gets in and it gets out. And from the first track, you're gonna get the notion this is going to be a heavy as all hell album. The Violent Fury lives up to its name. 3 minutes, 54 seconds in length, super heavy, bustling, driving drums that command this track with these gargly, throaty vocals, which we'll get into later. Driving, sour walls of guitar, huge, blasting drums that are just pounding in your ears, so audible. And I love death metal albums that have the drums being very audible, not too mixed to where it sounds too overly kind of clean, overly like saturized. This is completely raw. This sounds like a brutal death metal album that is done to a good extent. Yeah, this album's just really good. This is just a really good album. And see, from the first track, I try not to judge albums based on the first track, but after the Violent Fury, track number 2, What Lies Beyond, is heavier. It's heavier. It's heavier than the first track, and the first track was one of the heaviest brutal death metal songs that I have heard all year round. And no, I don't want to be recommended your slam and grind bands where the vocals are just like, and the drums are just, yes, that is heavy. I'm saying a fairly mainstream, brutal death metal outfit, not the underground cryptic recording in the caves of Norway bands. And this album has a thrashy element to it. The instrumentation, I can't be the only one that thinks that this really does have a very thrashy feel to it. From the first 2 tracks in particular, now the whole album has it to some degree, but the first 2 tracks really, they convey this feeling of a thrash element. Fast playing, almost speed power metal type of playing with this death metal styling. And God, the vocals! I feel like I'm being whispered in tongues by this gargly throat, like, entity, honestly. Like, a lot of times, vocals will try to have this edge. They'll try to be cutting edge. They'll try to be super heavy. I sound more like a complete deranged maniac than the other one. I sound more like a sewage drain than this one. No, this one sounds genuine with that edge. This sounds like a completely technical vocalist that knows what he's doing. And these come off as tortured, like frill, just like deep in the throat, guttural type of throaty, shredding vocals that really they don't get buried in the mix. A lot of times when you do these kind of throatier growls, they can sometimes get buried more so than other vocals. That doesn't happen here at all. What you just witnessed was my best representation of what these vocals sound like. And something that I gotta say is, this album doesn't try to be overly extravagant. They don't try to go above and beyond in the way of length or strange passages. They know what their strengths are. This is a band that's been around since 1997, and they're playing in their field because they do know what they're supposed to be doing. They understand where their strengths lie, and they're playing to those strengths. God, I should repeat, they are playing to those strengths. None of these tracks run super long. And a lot of death metal bands nowadays will try to do that, and they'll come off as boring. That doesn't happen here, especially technical death metal bands. And this album is not without technicality. There is a lot of technicality on this album. But it feels genuine. It doesn't feel so calculated that it feels mathematically just improbable and boring and mundane. It's kind of contradicting. It's counterintuitive because you get these technical death metal bands that try to go above and beyond and make something that sounds so calculated that it is just impossibly done. And it sounds that way. You can tell that it was so phoned in, so written in, and obviously it was written in, but you don't want it to sound that, like, inhumane. You want it to sound organic. You want it to have a lifelike type of feel to the playing. You want it to feel like humans. You don't want it to feel like mechanical cogs, bells, and whistles sounding at the same time to create some sort of instrumental amalgamation that just doesn't sound real. Hate Eternal doesn't do that. I just want to point out the last track, For Whom We Have Lost, ends the album off on an amazing note. Need I go further? If you've heard this track, you understand what I'm saying. So heavy, so brutal, so just earwormy. How can an album like this be catchy? It's a brutal death metal album, and it's catchy! Yeah, this album's amazing. This might take home my favorite death metal album of the year. All year round, I've thought that Augury was gonna take it. I thought that Elusive Golden Age was gonna be my favorite, like, death metal album of the year. But even then, that had a lot of black metal influences to it, and it was a good album. It still is a good album. It's held up well. I've went back and listened to it once, but wow, if I just want to hear a brutal death metal album this year, I might go to this album more than I would that Augury album. So I can see myself praising this album quite a bit at the end of the year. I'm going to be giving it a 9 out of 10, but what did you guys think? You can post in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you guys next time. But until then, my name is Morris, the Review Guy, and I'm signing off saying, farewell!